You're sitting in your living room enjoying a movie when you notice something odd. A faint buzzing sound that wasn't there yesterday. A few weeks later, your Wi-Fi starts acting strange, constantly dropping connections for no apparent reason. Then your smart home devices begin malfunctioning. Your electricity bill spikes by 30%, and you start getting headaches you can't explain. You'd never suspect your television is the culprit, but that's exactly what's happening to thousands of homeowners in 2026. One of the most popular TV brands on the market is creating a cascade of problems that extend far beyond the screen, quietly damaging homes and affecting the health and safety of families who trusted their marketing. This isn't paranoia or conspiracy theory. This is documented reality that the manufacturer hoped you'd never connect back to their product. Before we expose exactly what's going on and which brand you need to avoid, hit that subscribe button and drop a like on this video. Now tell me, which TV are you using right now and what strange problems have you noticed in your home since installing it? Share your experience in the comments because you might be dealing with this issue without even realizing it. The silent menace nobody expected. When you buy a television in 2026, you expect it to display content and maybe offer some smart features. What you don't expect is for it to become a source of electromagnetic interference that disrupts every other electronic device in your home. Yet that's precisely what this particular brand is doing, and the scale of the problem is staggering. The issue stems from inadequate electromagnetic shielding and poor power management design that causes these TVs to emit interference across a wide frequency spectrum. This isn't a minor technical quirk, it's a fundamental design flaw that should have been caught during regulatory testing but somehow made it to market anyway. The interference manifests in dozens of frustrating ways. Your Wi-Fi router, even if it's in another room, experiences constant dropped connections and reduced speeds when the TV is on. Bluetooth devices stutter and disconnect randomly. Cordless phones pick up buzzing and static. Baby monitors lose signal or produce distorted audio filled with electronic noise. Smart home hubs struggle to communicate with connected devices. Wireless security cameras experience degraded video quality or lose connection entirely. Even wired Ethernet connections can be affected if they run near the TV due to radiated interference coupling into the cables. Every wireless device in your home suddenly becomes unreliable, and you waste hours troubleshooting problems that actually originate from your television. The brand we're talking about aggressively expanded market share over the past 2 years through rock-bottom pricing and massive retail partnerships. They're everywhere: big box stores, online marketplaces, and even warehouse clubs. The marketing emphasizes incredible value, positioning these TVs as offering premium features at budget prices. What consumers don't realize is that hitting those price points required cutting corners on fundamental engineering requirements, like proper electromagnetic compatibility design. The components weren't adequately shielded, the power supplies weren't properly filtered, and the testing was minimal or falsified. The company prioritized speed to market and profit margins over producing a product that wouldn't cause problems in the homes where it's installed. The electrical system nightmare. Beyond wireless interference, these TVs create serious problems with home electrical systems that can lead to damage and safety hazards. The power supplies in these televisions use cheap switching regulators that produce electrical noise that gets injected directly back into your home's electrical wiring. This noise propagates throughout your electrical system, affecting every device connected to the same circuit and even spreading to other circuits through the breaker panel. The result is a contaminated electrical environment that degrades the performance and lifespan of other electronics throughout your home. Sensitive electronics are hit hardest by this electrical noise pollution. Computers and laptops connected to the same circuit experience random crashes, file corruption, and premature component failure. Audio equipment picks up buzzing and humming that ruins music and home theater experiences. LED light bulbs flicker or fail prematurely because their drivers can't handle the noise on the power line. Kitchen appliances with electronic controls start malfunctioning, displaying error codes or operating erratically. HVAC systems with digital thermostats lose programming or cycle incorrectly. Medical equipment like CPAP machines used by people with sleep apnea can malfunction, creating potential health risks. Your home's electrical system becomes a hostile environment for electronics because one poorly designed television is poisoning the power supply. The power consumption characteristics of these TVs cause additional electrical problems. They draw current in sharp, irregular spikes rather than smooth, consistent power, creating what's called a high harmonic distortion on your electrical system. This distortion can cause circuit breakers to trip unexpectedly even when total power consumption is well below the breaker's rating. Some homeowners report their main circuit breaker tripping when these TVs are turned on, temporarily cutting power to the entire house. The irregular power draw also stresses the electrical wiring itself, causing connections to heat up more than they should. In extreme cases documented by electricians, this has led to burned wiring, damaged outlets, and even small electrical fires. A television should be a simple resistive load on your electrical system, not a source of electrical chaos that threatens your home's infrastructure. The energy bill shock. One of the most immediate ways owners discover something is wrong with these TVs is through dramatically increased electricity bills. The manufacturer claims energy efficiency and low power consumption, but real-world measurements tell a completely different story. These televisions consume far more power than their specifications suggest, and the actual consumption varies wildly based on content and settings in ways that don't match normal TV behavior. Some owners report their electricity bills increasing by $20 to $40 per month after installing one of these TVs, which over a year adds hundreds of dollars to the cost of ownership beyond the purchase price. The energy consumption problem has multiple causes. First, the actual power draw is simply higher than advertised, with independent testing showing consumption that's 30 to 50% above the manufacturer's claims. This isn't a small measurement error, it's systematic misrepresentation of the product's energy requirements. Second, the TV continues drawing substantial power even in standby mode, sometimes pulling 20 to 30 watts when it's supposedly off. That standby power drain adds up over time, costing you money every hour the TV isn't even being used. Third, the thermal management is so poor that the TV runs hot constantly, and that wasted energy shows up as heat rather than useful work, making your cooling system work harder in warm weather and adding even more to your energy costs. The energy waste gets worse as the TV ages. The cheap components degrade quickly, and as they do, efficiency drops even further. A 6-month-old unit pulls noticeably more power than it did when new, and the trend continues over time. Some owners who installed energy monitoring equipment report their TV's power consumption increasing by 15 to 20% over the first year of ownership. You're not just paying more than expected from day one, you're paying increasingly more as the TV ages and becomes an even bigger energy hog. For a product you use for hours every day over multiple years, this energy waste translates to hundreds of dollars in unnecessary costs that dwarf any savings from the TV's low purchase price. Health concerns nobody talks about. Here's where things get genuinely concerning beyond just annoyance and extra costs. Multiple owners have reported health symptoms that began after installing these TVs and resolved when the TV was removed. The most common complaints are headaches, eye strain, sleep disruption, and a general feeling of unease when in the same room as the TV. While correlation doesn't prove causation, the pattern is consistent enough across hundreds of independent reports that it demands attention. The likely culprits are the electromagnetic interference we discussed earlier, along with poor display characteristics that stress the visual system. The electromagnetic emissions from these TVs are significantly higher than they should be, particularly in the radio frequency range. While current safety standards say these levels are acceptable, those standards were established decades ago and don't account for the total electromagnetic environment in modern homes with dozens of wireless devices. Some people are more sensitive to electromagnetic fields than others, and for those individuals, a TV that's constantly radiating interference can trigger headaches, fatigue, and difficulty concentrating. Children and pregnant women may be more vulnerable to these effects, though manufacturers certainly won't warn you about this. The display itself has characteristics that can cause physical discomfort. The backlight flickers at frequencies that are detectable by some people's visual systems, causing eye strain and headaches even though the flicker isn't consciously visible. The color balance is poor, with an excess of blue light that disrupts circadian rhythms and interferes with sleep, especially when watching TV in the evening. The brightness levels are inconsistent, forcing your eyes to constantly adapt as different content plays, which causes fatigue. Some units have been measured as producing higher than normal levels of ultraviolet light, which can contribute to eye damage over time. You bought a TV to enjoy entertainment, not to expose your family to a daily source of physical stress that accumulates over months and years. The fire hazard reality. The most serious problem with these TVs is one that could literally destroy your home. They're a fire hazard. Multiple documented cases exist of these televisions catching fire, sometimes while in use and sometimes while supposedly turned off. The fires typically start in the power supply section, where cheap components overheat and eventually fail catastrophically. In some cases, the TV's plastic housing melts and burns. In others, internal components short circuit and create sparks that ignite surrounding materials. The fires have caused property damage ranging from destroyed furniture and walls to entire homes being burned down. People have been injured by these fires, and it's only a matter of time before someone is killed if these TVs remain in homes. The manufacturer's response to fire reports has been inadequate and evasive. When owners report fires or burning smells from their TVs, the company often blames user error, claiming the TV was in an enclosed space without adequate ventilation or was connected to a faulty electrical outlet. These excuses ignore that the same installation scenarios work fine with properly designed TVs from other manufacturers. The company has not issued recalls despite clear evidence of a systemic fire risk. Some fire reports have been quietly settled with non-disclosure agreements that prevent owners from publicly discussing what happened. The pattern suggests the manufacturer knows there's a problem, but is more concerned about liability and reputation than about the safety of people who bought their products. The root cause of the fire risk is the same cost-cutting we've discussed throughout this video. The power supply components are rated too close to their operating limits, with no safety margin for component variation or aging. The thermal management is inadequate, allowing components to run much hotter than safe design would permit. The circuit board material is cheap and more flammable than it should be. There are no adequate fuses or thermal cutoffs that would shut down the TV before a component failure turns into a fire. Every safety feature that adds cost was eliminated, leaving you with a television that's essentially a fire waiting to happen. The probability of any individual unit catching fire might be low, but with hundreds of thousands of these TVs installed in homes, fires are inevitable and ongoing. How they're getting away with it. You might wonder how a television with all these problems can pass regulatory testing and remain on the market. The answer is a combination of regulatory loopholes, inadequate enforcement, and corporate behavior that ranges from negligent to potentially fraudulent. Electromagnetic compatibility testing is often done by the manufacturer or their contracted labs, with limited independent verification by regulators. A company can shop for labs that are lenient with testing procedures or that overlook marginal failures. They can optimize the test samples to barely pass while production units exceed emissions limits. They can provide misleading documentation about how the TV will actually be installed and used in homes. Energy consumption testing relies on standardized test patterns that manufacturers can game. The TV can detect these test patterns and enter a special low-power mode that doesn't reflect real-world usage, allowing it to claim efficiency it doesn't actually deliver to consumers. This practice is so common, it has a name: test mode defeat devices. And while technically illegal, it's hard to detect and rarely prosecuted. Safety testing for fire risk is similarly limited, focusing on specific fault conditions rather than long-term reliability of components. A TV can pass initial safety tests but still pose a fire risk after months of use as components degrade. The regulatory system assumes manufacturers are acting in good faith, but companies focus purely on profit exploit every gap in testing and enforcement. When problems are reported, the system moves slowly while TVs remain in homes causing damage. Consumer product safety agencies are understaffed and overwhelmed with reports across thousands of product categories. Building a case for recall requires extensive documentation, testing, and often political will that may be lacking. The manufacturer can delay by providing alternative explanations for problems, commissioning their own favorable studies, or arguing that the number of incidents doesn't meet the threshold for action. Meanwhile, more units are sold and more homes are affected. By the time any regulatory action happens, if it happens at all, the damage is done and the company may have moved on to a new model that repeats the same corner cutting in slightly different ways. Real victims share their stories. The abstract discussion of technical problems doesn't capture the real human impact of these defective televisions. Families have lost irreplaceable photos and documents to fires caused by these TVs. People have paid thousands of dollars to electricians to diagnose electrical problems, only to eventually discover their TV was the source. Parents have taken children to doctors for unexplained headaches, going through expensive testing and worry, without anyone thinking to consider the television. Homeowners have replaced routers, called internet service providers repeatedly, and upgraded their entire network infrastructure trying to fix connectivity problems that came from electromagnetic interference. The frustration, expense, and disruption these TVs cause is enormous when you aggregate it across thousands of affected households. One story that stands out comes from a family in the Midwest who installed one of these TVs in their living room. Your real-world stories help other viewers avoid these dangerous products, so please share below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we expose another product that's causing problems manufacturers hope you'll never notice.